Hello there, my name is Lori Elke and I'm an artist and an illustrator and an art teacher currently living in Wisconsin. One of my favorite things to paint with is gouache, and this painting that I did today could be done in gouache, or you could do it in acrylic paint as well, or even oil if you wanted. I started off with the background and then worked my way to the foreground to create this nice scene of water coming up on the smooth stones. So it was kind of a fun one. You can see there's a lot of movement in the water and then a lot of the fun different variations in the stones. So I highly recommend trying this out. It was a great exercise for blending and shading. And then also just to try to get a nice variety of line work going through here. So have fun with this. I used my Hemi jelly gouache, and that is a lot of fun to use as well. But again, you could use acrylic paint for this or oil if you have it and have similar results. Thanks so much for watching. If you are liking these videos, please hit that subscribe button down below so that you can get notified when I put new stuff up on my channel, Elke Art. I am using watercolor paper for this and Maya Hemi gouache, and I have sped up my video a little bit, so if I go too fast, feel free to push pause. As you can see, I've taped down my watercolor paper, and I'm starting off with a really creamy line that is quite bendy and twisty and wavy. This will be kind of the area where the water meets the sand. And I'm going to just try to kind of play around with using different shades of sand colors. I want it to be lighter towards the center of my paper, and then I want it to get gradually darker as it goes away from the center. So I have a really large set that I'm working with of gouache. It's like 50 colors or something like that. So I can just kind of play around with all the different shades, but you could also just be practicing your blending and mixing of all of these shades by mixing some tans, some whites, some browns, throwing maybe a little bit of yellows in there, things like that. So I'm just trying to kind of continue this wavy pattern here, and I want it to get gradually darker as I get towards the corner of my paper here. Here I'm actually using almost black. It does have some brown mixed in, but I wanted it to be nice and dark. And then I can kind of lighten it with a little bit more brown so it's not quite so black. You can see I'm making sure to paint off the edges of my paper onto the tape. That will give it a nice crisp white border when I am finished. Here I am starting on the blue sections, and just like I did with the sand, I'm trying to add nice wavy lines in my water area. And then I am kind of streaking some different colors of blue through for my water. Now I'm also using Hemi paint brushes. Both of these I just bought off of Amazon. And I like to use a variety of materials, but these have been a lot of fun and are actually very reasonably priced. As you can see on the blue area, I am going back and forth between light and dark. So I've got some light, some medium, some light, some dark. So I'm trying to give it more of a variety of light and dark than I did with my sand, where it just moved from light in the center to dark towards the corner. I'm really having fun with these waves. I will definitely come back and visit these again. So if they are not exactly how you want them the first time, that is totally okay. Right now, I'm just trying to make sure to get my paper covered with some paint and some color, kind of map out my plan here. When I put my first layer of gouache on my paper, I also like to put it on somewhat thin So I am mixing some water with my gouache to make it so that it spreads out evenly and gives me a nice thin coat of paint to start with. If you get it too thick, it's hard to layer things on top of it. So think of it more as watercolor right away. Just keep it nice and thin, and then we will add a little bit more thick paint to it later on as we build up the layers. I'm just kind of going back over some of my areas where I still see too much white, kind of filling those in. All right, I am working with black, and I don't always do this. I actually very rarely use black, but I am going bold today. So I am starting to lay out where my stones are going, and basically I am just going for some rock-like shapes. It is okay if they touch. I'm trying to almost do like little clusters or groupings of stones on the sand. So I don't want them all perfectly rounded. They can be kind of different shapes, but they should be somewhat smooth shapes because they are getting tossed and turned with this water and sand, which would kind of grind down any rough or sharp edges on these stones to make them nice and smooth. So I'm just taking my brush and drawing in these stone-like shapes all over the sand area, and you can see one is kind of surrounded by water there up on the top right here. I'm just kind of filling in the space with stones. Now I wanted to leave some of my sand still showing through, so I did leave gaps. You could just go straight in and fill the thing with stones too. I've definitely been on beaches like that before. All right, as you see, I am starting to add some shading to these stones, and I am doing that with brown first. I'm jumping around to different stones, filling them with a darker brown, and then trying to add a little bit of light towards the center of the stones to lighten up the middle. And I don't want all of my stones to be brown, so I am jumping around to different ones to kind of touch and go, because when you go to a beach that has lots of rocks or stones, you will not usually see stones that are all the same color. So I'm starting off with this brown color, jumping around to different stones, starting off dark, working my way to the light, and then I will start switching to a different color. Now this is really an artistic choice here, folks. If you would like to do mostly brown tones and earthy tones, grays, you can do that. Maybe you are on a beach where there are special gemstones and you've got some more vibrant colors going on, like greens or reds or pinks. You could get as fancy or as more earthy as you would like. I am sticking with the more earthy tones, so you can see I'm kind of working into some grays next, and I would like to probably add more of like a burnt sienna or orangish brown. So just trying to kind of keep it in the earthy tones as I work. Now it's really nice working with the brush that I'm using. This is a number 12, so it's actually a pretty big round brush, but it does have a nice point to it. So if I do need to do some smaller stones, I don't have to switch brushes. I can keep using this large brush and have no problems getting some smaller details into my smaller stones. Now I will be revisiting these stones after this layer. This is just the first layer, so if you are worried that you're not getting enough of a highlight, the color's blending too much, we'll come back in and we will lighten them a little bit more on our second round through. I also, like in this case, my black was still really wet, so my stone was very dark. And I needed to kind of let that dry before I go in and lighten it up a little bit more with a lighter color of gouache. Now I find kind of hopping around from stone to stone and kind of playing around with the blending of each one of these pretty relaxing and soothing. So I'm hoping that if you try this, you are experiencing that as well. Okay, so I'm going to take a break from the stones, let those dry, and now I'm just going back in and adding a little bit more detail to my water. I wanted to add maybe some darker lines, some very curvy lines through here. I mean, this is really just a matter of playing with your wavy lines. Really have fun with it. It's not meant to be a stressful painting. Hopefully you will find it kind of fun and relaxing, just going back and forth, painting these nice lines, enjoying the wave. I am going into some lighter blues, some darker blues, kind of jumping back and forth. It's okay if they blend here and there. It just gives the painting a little bit more excitement. I'm also throwing in a little bit of the beach tones in here to show kind of where the water is overlapping the shore. Maybe you get a hint of that sand through some of the lines of the water. A lot of it's just playing around, seeing what you like. Now, as I am going back over some of these other areas of my painting, I am using a little bit less water and a little bit more paint. And this will give me a little bit thicker of layers of gouache that covers better as well. It usually works best when the previous layers are dry, so that way you're not just blending the colors that you have on there. I decided I needed a few more stones, so I added a couple more on there, and I am painting them in like I have the rest. Next, I just wanted to add some highlights. My stones look a little too flat, so the more value I can add to them, the more they will kind of come to life. So they have their original outline, then they have their first layer, and now I am adding a little bit more of a highlight on each of these. I'm trying to stay in the same kind of color family, so the browns I'm doing together, the grays I'm doing together, more of the orangey tones I'm doing together. So just trying to kind of stay in the same family as I add these highlights, and I'm also trying to add the highlights on the same sides of each stone. It would not make sense necessarily to have a highlight on the top right of one and the bottom left on the other. So I'm just kind of throwing in extra bright highlights on each one of these. I am really enjoying kind of jumping around my painting and touching all of these with fun little highlights, makes them kind of pop. And I am going to take my tape off to reveal my nice border and call that a masterpiece. Well, there you go. Thank you so much for watching, and like I said before, please hit that subscribe button to be notified when I have more video content coming up on my page. Have fun painting, everyone. See you again soon.